there are different ways of approaching how to draw a still life. But somehow, we need to help the learners to become more comfortable with getting the still life onto the scraperboard. If one leaves learners who are lacking in confidence or lacking in experience, they will do a tiny little thing in the middle of the scraperboard, and that will be the still life, because it's natural. We all do that when we are feeling insecure about something. So the first thing is to tell them, explain to the learners that they ideally, there are always exceptions in art, but in this exercise, remember we are focusing on the grade 7 term 2. Saying that, this can be for any of the grades from grade 4 right up to the trip, as you can see. So the idea is that they keep in mind that the object should be more or less 80%, so 80% of the paper. So it's going to be quite big on their scraperboard with just a small border. So how does one get them to feel confident with getting this 80% onto this paper? The exercise that I described as terrifying is contour drawing, and it really can be quite terrifying when you're not used to it, continuous contour drawing, but I honestly believe that it is the best way of learning how to see. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with it, and the more you're able to see what is really there. So we're actually going to look at the drawing exercises from two different sides. We're going to look from, let's call it the right side of the brain, and we're going to look from the left side of the brain. So the right side of the brain is we're actually becoming one with our object, and we're going to be drawing it quickly using one continuous line. And we're doing this just to get an idea of the size and the shape and the proportion of this object. So this is not a standard way of approaching scraperboards. I'm just suggesting it because I think it's a good way of getting an idea of the object. If you were to say to the learners, okay, take your pencil and do a sketch. Most of my learners would sit the whole lesson to try and do this perfect pencil drawing. That's not the idea. We want to get it onto the scraperboard. So, with a contour drawing, you're going to ask them in 2 minutes and then in 4 minutes to do, they're going to do 2 drawings. Very importantly, they're not going to be judged. That's important. And nobody's even necessary, they're not going to show it to the rest of the class, they're just doing this to get an idea of their object. So, the 2-minute one, so let's say I've got a cup, and I want it to be more or less 80. Now, contour drawing means one, maybe I see a shine, it's one continuous line. They're not necessarily outlining, they're just getting an idea of the size that they want the cup to be. There's my 2-minute drawing. Speed is a friend because it stops perfectionism, it stops people being terrified, it just gets them to get an idea of what it's going to look like on this scraperboard. You want to try? Are you ready? So it's one continuous line. Just a tip, and this is a good tip for the learners, they might get stuck in one area at the top, and after 2 minutes they've just done that. So you must tell them, the whole object needs to be covered. And a contour drawing means they can go up the side, up, around, down, back. It's like a ball of wool that's unfolding. They're not just doing the outline. Okay, so I'm going to time 2 minutes, and I'm going to ask you to capture this object in 2 minutes with your pencil. You're lucky you've got a pencil. I have a black note. That's okay. I normally give black notes. Okay, are you ready? 2 minutes for the first drawing. Go for it. Manage to get the whole thing. Almost. Or who only got a little at the top or the side? Only 3. Who only captured part of it? Okay. So now I want you to be a little bit looser because you're going to get the whole object, but you've got 4 minutes. 4 minutes is a long time after 2 minutes. Okay, so you've got 4 minutes to capture this. right. There's no such thing as right. You're going over and over with all these lines like a ball of wool. It's emerging. Okay, so let's get our pieces of paper together. So now you've got a little bit more of an idea of what you're doing, right?
No.
And remember, this is not about a result. Nobody's going to be marked or judged, and you're not even going to show each other. You're just exploring your object. Okay, are you ready for 4 minutes? It's a long time. I'm going to give you a little tip in drawing, and it's a good thing to tell your learners. You look at the object 70% of the time, and at your paper 30% of the time. So most of the time you're drawing, you're actually looking at the object. And you just glance down at your paper every now and again. If you're looking at your paper 70% of the time and the object 30% of the time, you're just making it up in your head. So now ask yourself, are you keeping it to one continuous line? It's a challenge. The more you do this, the more fun it becomes. It actually becomes fun. Like, I love doing it now. When I first did it, I was terrified. Okay, and then pencils down. So, learners generally don't like doing this exercise because they don't like the result and they don't think it's good. But the more you can persuade them to do it, the more they're going to learn how to actually really see. And eventually, your eye and your hand are working like one as you actually move your eye around the object. So it's a really wonderful way of learning to draw.